Listen, have a terrible opinion and hot take on one of the best-selling consoles of all time, its successor not being backwards compatible with it. Cool off my head and keep coming.
Skip it up and that up.
So we know at this point, watch it doesn't happen and it comes out in 2025, but we know at this point it really seems like Nintendo is dropping a Switch successor in 2024, which for Christ's sake, Nintendo, you need to. Please, it's time. I just reviewed with Jay Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, and holy Christ, I cannot believe they charged $70 for that game. Anyway, go check out that video. Link to that below in the description. Jay and I may have been shirtless in that video. We weren't, but we did review Mortal Kombat 1 for the Switch, and it's garbage. I spoiled the review for you. Damn it. Well, one of the things about the next-gen Switch, which has been highly debated, and there's rumors going back and forth, and there's rumors that there's pressure from publishers to not have this feature, but then we hear that the next Switch is going to have the feature, is backwards compatibility. It's kind of like up in the air right now if the next gen Switch is going to be backwards compatible with your current gen Switch. Perfect timing. Forgot about this. The test worked, United States government. Thank you. Anyway, it's been heavily contested if the next-gen Switch is going to have backwards compatibility, and people keep going back and forth on it. Insiders keep going back and forth on it, and we know that publishers are like, hey, we want to just resell the games and make and be like, hey, it's the remastered version of every single Switch game you ever got. Buy it again, please. Well, lick me.
You blew it.
Well, listen, first and foremost, I love Nintendo life. This isn't me attacking anybody. I don't even think that needs to be said, but I know there's some people in my audience that think when I criticize somebody, that's an attack. And there's some people out there who think that it's an attack when I criticize them. Imagine if I thought everyone who criticized me, it was an attack. I wouldn't be talking about Pat the NES punk or Ian Ferguson, would I? I'm sorry, guys. Should I have DM'd you about roasting you right now first? And hey, guys, I'm going to roast you. Eat shit. Well, point being is they have an article, an opinion piece up called Switch 2 doesn't really need backwards compatibility. And dear God, the takes here are bad. Now, admittedly, there was a time many moons ago I was very anti-backwards compatibility. Not anti-backwards compatibility, but a lot of people were very concerned about it, and I didn't understand why, because I was stupid. And I was like, no, if you already have the games, just keep your console out. It's not like it's eventually going to get old or break or anything. God, I was dumb. Not saying I'm not dumb now, but you get my point. Well, anyway, I'm going to read some of Gavin Lane's article over on Nintendo Life. I'll have a link to this below in the description as well. And I'm going to kind of rebuke his arguments here. Now, keep in mind, I will say that he says initially that he wants backwards compatibility on the next-gen Switch, but he won't think it's a big deal if it doesn't get it, and this is how he explains it. I don't agree at all, though. I find myself realizing that Nintendo's next console really doesn't need backwards compatibility. In fact, it needs it less than any previous Nintendo console, and perhaps any console ever. I think I literally, not to start with the first paragraph, Jay, I'm sorry, this video is going to be 70 minutes long now.
Stinks like shit.
If anything, I think it's the complete opposite. A hybrid console that you could take with you on the go and also use at home. If anything, backwards compatibility is more important than ever. Because if Nintendo wants it to be your entire gaming ecosystem, backwards compatibility would be crucial to that. More than going from the GameCube to the Wii, or the Wii to the Wii U. What are you talking about? You have a console you could take with you everywhere. Don't you want all of your Nintendo experiences that you purchased on the Switch to also be on the next-gen Switch? I'm not saying it has to be backwards compatible all the way to the NES, even though with Nintendo Switch Online, they are giving you games that old, but you get my point. Okay, let's continue though. Here we go. The ability to play GameCube games on Wii or Wii games on Wii U made upgrading a marginally easier decision, but the reality is that I would have gotten the new systems eventually regardless. So what? And I'll say something else here in a second. For lifelong gamers, convenience and peace of mind are the two main reasons we care so much about still being able to access previous gen games on our new systems. The peace of mind that we'll still have direct and immediate access to our existing library without the inconvenience of digging out the old console or worrying if it still works. So you're saying that it was a little bit of peace of mind. Like, okay, I'm getting a Wii. I know my Wii games will work on the Wii U. But if anything, I think it's more important than ever now, backwards compatibility, especially that we're going into an all digital future where you're going to want, especially if you 360, I love what Microsoft did. They're still kind of doing it where if you have games digitally downloaded mostly from the 360 on up, hell, the original Xbox on up, they're going to work on your Series S and X, and Sony to a smaller degree. Virtually all PlayStation 4 games work on the PS5. And then on top of it too, the reason why I think backwards compatibility is more appealing than ever and more necessary than ever is look like what Microsoft did. I think of Red Dead Redemption. When the Xbox One X was out, Red Dead Redemption, they actually made run the 7th gen game, not Red Dead Redemption 2. I didn't say 2, so what the hell does it even matter? But Red Dead Redemption for the 360, if you ran it on the One X, it rendered at native 4K, and it looked pretty much like, at the time, a current gen game. So backwards compatibility not only preserves your old games, it actually can make them more like current gen experiences. I mean, they were just showing Drive Club running, that was on the PS4, and they show it running at 60 FPS on the PS5, and other games like God of War 2018 running at a solid 60 FPS, Ghost of Tsushima. I know I'm naming a bunch of PlayStation 5 games right now. And hell, there's Play Fear for the 360, one of my favorite games of all time, in the top 5 or 10, I should say. You play it on the 360, it now runs at a solid 60 FPS instead of a very choppy 30 on the Xbox 360. So the whole argument of, backwards compatibility is a minor convenience. No, you're actually getting better experiences on the more powerful hardware, and Nintendo could do the same with Switch games running on the Switch 2 or Super Nintendo Switch. So yeah, I don't agree with your statement that it's a marginal convenience. I actually think it's very important now, and your take there is not good at all. He also goes on to how people would like to trade in their old consoles, and that's why they would like the backwards compatibility, so it would make the new console easier to afford. But he's like the curated gamers, that's a word that Phil has been using recently, DSP gaming. They like to keep their old hardware and just have a closet full of it. And if it breaks and they want to play their old games and there's no backwards compatibility, oh well, they're hardcore gamers. They'll go on eBay and find another console to replace the one that broke. However, the more obsessive gamers among us are more likely to keep our old consoles. Oh God, you totally sound like 2013 me. And keeping your trusty Switch in a state of readiness is an easier ask than those bulky home consoles. Yes, because I'm sure that lithium-ion battery that's in your 2017 Switch is not eventually going to expand and fail. Yeah. Oh, look, here's my Switch. Oh, wow. Why does it look like it has a beer gut? So glad I kept it so I could play my old Switch games. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? If anything, the older home consoles, especially if they didn't have some kind of BIOS battery in them, those leak too, would last longer. It's like, think about it this way, what he's saying. Say the iPhone 6 was a console like the Switch is. Like, hey, you could still hold, like, we're going on to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, like, say they waited for that long of a generation, but you could just go back to your trusty iPhone 6 if you want to play the previous generation games. Would that make as much sense? No, it wouldn't. That's essentially what you're saying right now. That it would be old, the battery life in it, unless you replace the battery, would be crap. and it's an old console that will eventually fail. And because it's portable, that's where the phone and the Switch are the same, it gets banged around more. Now he goes on to talk about how Nintendo wouldn't want to make the next Switch backwards compatible because there used to be, and it was fixed, an exploit to make it easier to hack and pirate with the older Switch. But they could remedy that. Anyway, this is what he has to say. Perhaps more relevant to Nintendo's bottom line and the firm's overall approach to hackers and homebrew, any potential avenue to piracy will be locked tight with Switch 2. No, it won't. You don't think someone will figure it out like they do with every single other console? Stop it. The original Switch that launched in 2017 was replaced by a revision incorporating the updated chip found in the Lite and OLED models due to an exploit discovered by hackers, essentially an unpatchable vulnerability in the NVIDIA chipset itself. The flaw blew the doors off the system's security very early in its life cycle. The updated SKUs fixed the issue, but the damage was done, and videos of Nintendo games running in 4K on PC, sometimes before they're even publicly available on Switch, are now par for the course. But they fixed the exploit. Yes, you're right, but they fixed the exploit so they can make the next generation Switch be backwards compatible with the exploit fixed. So again, that's not a good reason for the next gen Switch to not be backwards compatible. This is lunacy. He's not making any sense. And then he throws in the argument of, who's going to want to play these old games again? There's other things here, but I'm not going to go into everything. Link to the whole article below in the description. This video is already long enough. This is what Gavin had to say. With the Switch now over halfway into its 7th year, which still blows me away, they got 7 years out of the Tegra X1, many of us have upgraded and have multiple Switches in the house. That's... Even if you do, first off, that's not true for everybody, but even if you do, so if one of them breaks, I'll have backwards compatibility on my other ones until those break, and then all these old games that I may want to play because they're classics, guess it sucks for me. Continuing on, unlike its bulky home console brethren, which I actually know people who have multiple, whether it be series consoles or PS5s, but okay. The rigmarole and inconvenience of digging one of those out to play some Breath of the Wild is negligible. As great as it would be, I really don't need to play Breath of the Wild or Mario Odyssey or Smash Bros. Ultimate on my Super Switch. But you're just looking at it as a utility. You have to understand, as we've seen with both Sony and especially Microsoft, not only does backwards compatibility, it's a nice feature, it lets you play old games and lets you play them with superior fidelity, frame rates, and performance. Imagine you have Breath of the Wild, okay, and it barely runs at 30 on the Switch, and then you could run it at like 1080p 60 on the next gen Switch, and it's a solid locked 60 FPS. I almost said 30, 60 FPS. Imagine how that would change, and they have it running at native HD resolutions, both in handheld and docked mode. And it looks night and day difference. And the reason why that happened is because it's backwards compatible. Especially, I think more than ever, I totally disagree with you, Gavin, the next gen Switch, especially because it's a hybrid console that you use at home and on the go, backwards compatible is more necessary than ever. Not just for game preservation, but because Nintendo can offer you a superior experience with those old games due to the more powerful hardware. I don't even know how you could say that backwards compatibility is a non-issue here. It is a huge issue, and I hope the next-gen Switch has it. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.